All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Wow, the 2-0 start that the New Orleans Saints had to begin this season seems like it was eons ago, as this team has been in disarray ever since. New Orleans has now lost their last 7 games, with the lowest of those lowlights coming today as the Saints fell on the road to the previously one win Carolina Panthers. New Orleans lost today in spite of the fact that they outgained the Panthers by nearly 200 yards and held the football for 9 more minutes than their NFC South rivals. Today's game marked the return of quarterback Derek Carr for the Saints as he missed the last 3 for New Orleans with that oblique injury. But Carr's return could not spark the Saints. Is honestly, for me, they looked flat at times out there. They played like, you know what, we can go out there and beat this team just by showing up, and they paid for it. Okay, you look at the first half. New Orleans was kicking field goals while Carolina was scoring touchdowns, and then of course, to me, I think the big blow for the Saints, they were up 13-7 late in the second quarter. Carolina got that field goal just before the end of the first half to make it 13-10. And then the Panthers got the football to begin the second half, and they went down the field on that 9-play, 86-yard drive that ate up more than 5 minutes of game time to give them the 17-13 advantage. From there, we did see New Orleans kick another field goal by Blake Grupe. They took the lead early on in the fourth quarter, 22-17, but they were unable to seal the deal today as they fell on the road to Carolina by the score of 23-17. Now, make no mistake about it, losing wide receiver Chris Olave was big. He went out after that hit with a concussion. He was taken to a local facility. He was able to fly back with the team to New Orleans. And you just hope, first and foremost, that his health going forward is okay. His second concussion in a very short period of time. And you just want to see that young man be healthy. But nonetheless, the loss by the Saints today gave former first overall pick Bryce Young just his third win as an NFL starting quarterback. So, with all of it said, to me, everything that I'm talking about really just falls into the lap of Saints head coach Dennis Allen, whose record in New Orleans is now just 18-25 in 2+ seasons. Under Allen, the Saints have never made the postseason, and they are well on their way to their second losing season in the last 3 years. One would want to know what has happened with the Saints as far as the 2024 version of the Saints. You look at them, or you looked at them in the first 2 games of this season, and they looked like juggernauts. They looked like they were going to be a problem. They steamrolled Carolina at home by the score of 47-10. And I think part of that domination in week number one, I think carried over to this game today because the Saints played like, you know what? No big thing. We're going to go out there and punk these guys again. Very difficult in the NFL to beat a team 2 times or more in a season. Okay, and New Orleans found that out again today. You go back to week number two, the Saints went on the road and they just went through the Dallas Cowboys like gangbusters, 44-19. And honestly, the final score of that game really wasn't indicative of how close that it was because New Orleans dominated. But since then we've seen the losses get worse and worse. A heartbreaking loss to the Eagles in week three, a heartbreaking loss to the Atlanta Falcons in week number four, losing to the Kansas City Chiefs in week number five. And of course, that was when Derek Carr sustained the injury. But since then, getting blown out by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home. You gave up 51 points to the Bucks that day. You lost by 23 to the Denver Broncos in the return of your former head coach Sean Payton, and then you lost 26-8 last Sunday, courtesy of the Los Angeles Chargers. And then today might have been the lowest of the lows for New Orleans and the Dennis Allen era. So you look at it, and the Saints have been hit with the injury bug. Okay, but they've also been on the wrong side of some of these scores. And now with today's loss to Carolina, which I feel is the worst, they're now technically in last place in the NFC South. And I think, there's a lot of ways that you can attack this. First things first for me, I feel like under Dennis Allen, the Saints have never gotten an identity. That is something that they've lacked. We don't know what this team is. You kind of knew what this team was, in the heyday of Sean Payton and Drew Brees when they were working together. But nonetheless, that is no longer the case for the New Orleans Saints, as they simply just seem to be a team that's in limbo. They have the talent defensively to go out there and get it done, and they've been like that for quite some time now, but so many issues on offense. Alvin Kamara is the juggernaut for this team. We saw him have, a big time day today. He had 155 yards rushing on 29 carries. He had 60 more yards receiving on 6 receptions, but he didn't get to the end zone. And you just look at this team right now, they're just going through the motions, and each and every Sunday, they're finding a way to be on the wrong side of the score. With that said, 7-game losing streak at this point is not good for the New Orleans Saints. Their season is basically done. Okay, they're not going to turn it around. They're not going to be a postseason contender. Of course, you want to see how this team is going to finish the 2024 NFL season, but nonetheless, I simply don't see Dennis Allen coming back for 2025 at this rate. And honestly, the way that the Saints are playing and they're finding ways to lose games, I'm not even sure if he's going to finish this season as the head coach in New Orleans. You go back to last year, losing a game that should have been won, as far as the Falcons being heavy favorites on the road in Charlotte against these same Carolina Panthers, basically was the beginning of the end for Arthur Smith as the head coach of the Falcons. And I think maybe, just maybe, this could be the beginning of the end for Dennis Allen with the New Orleans Saints. So honestly, if you're Mickey Loomis and company with the Saints, maybe, just maybe, your 2025 season is already beginning, because maybe it's a situation where you're just going to sit back and evaluate this roster and look and see, hey, who is going to be here going forward? What is going to be our game plan going forward as we try to retool this roster and once again be competitive in the NFC South? You look at it for the last couple of years, the Saints were right there in contention to win this NFC South. It was a very winnable division. That is no longer the case for New Orleans this season. Of course, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are dealing with their own injuries. And right now, at this point of the season, it's the Atlanta Falcons division to lose. But nonetheless, the New Orleans Saints simply cannot get out of their own way. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt for the injuries, because it's part of the game. And on top of that, the Saints have had some key injuries over the last couple of weeks. But nonetheless, getting your starting quarterback back, you're 2-6 and coming into play today, and you got to say, hey, you know what? Let's go out there. Let's take care of our business against this Carolina Panthers team. You got a struggling young quarterback. Let's go out there and take advantage of that as well. New Orleans did neither of those things, and now they're 2-7. They're in last place in this division, and so many question marks are hanging around this team. So you look at the Saints. Okay, they've got the Falcons at home this coming Sunday, and of course, the last time that these two teams met in New Orleans was week number 18 last year. It wasn't pretty, as the Falcons felt like, you know what, the Saints were running up the score on them. So let's see what happens this time around. But you look at the next couple of weeks for the Saints, they've got the Falcons, like I said, at home this Sunday. Then they then host the Cleveland Browns with former backup quarterback for the Saints, Jameis Winston, now in tow as a starter in Cleveland before they have their bye week. So they don't have to go on the road for the next month. Okay, 3 home games and a bye week. Let's see if they could find a way to try to find a way. Pardon me, trying to forgive me for sounding a little repetitive there, but just finding a way to get on track and trying to get, some semblance of order and trying to salvage what appeared to be a promising season just 2 months ago. Things have gone wrong for the New Orleans Saints very, very quickly. And I think when it's all said and done, it's going to cost Dennis Allen his job. It's just a matter of when. Whether that decision is going to be made before the end of the season, and then the Saints will go with an interim head coach, or they're simply going to let Dennis Allen finish out this season and clearly change the coaching room for this franchise for the 2025 season. But nonetheless, bad loss today for the Saints. There's no real way to sugarcoat it. I know that they came in riding or nursing a 6 game losing streak, but you've got to go out there and take care of your business against the Carolina Panthers. The Saints didn't do that. A very tough loss. And at the end of the day, I think the clock is now ticking on the tenure for head coach Dennis Allen with the Saints. But, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I'm signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.